People worry about life. They worry about living, growing, dying, and what happens in the next life. Well, you have to understand that in your own life, you will change many, many times. Think about how your life has changed in the past 5 years. Think of how the world has changed in the past 20 years. Think about the things that we have today, which we couldn't even imagine 50, 100, 200 years ago. Think about things that we're looking forward to in the future. And understand that life will continue to always be in a state of change. Now, I have a theory that I like to always look at, and I will share it with you. It's about the theory of 7 years. Now, you know, in marriage, they talk about that 7-year itch. Well, in essence, we change almost totally as people every 7 years. Now, if you don't believe that, think about this here. Have you ever had a friend who you hadn't seen for a while? Let's say you hadn't seen this friend in maybe 2 years, and you see them again. Do they really look that much different? In most cases, they don't. They look pretty much about the same as they did 2 years ago. But if you hadn't seen someone in 7 years, how much different do they look? Think about yourself when you were first born, from the first day of your birth, and now contrast that 7 years later. What do you look like? Now take that age and go up 7 more years. How much of a change has come from those 7 years? Now take that age and go up 7 more years. You see a whole different person. And then go again 7 more years and another change has occurred. So what we are is always changing. And what we become is based on how we direct our lives in one way, and also how life directs us. There are things that we do. We can eat properly, exercise, get enough rest, but still, in essence, we're not really controlling much of what happens to us. We're basically being done by nature. Okay? It's like you have a baby, the baby continues to grow. The person continues to change. The person will eventually get old and they will cease to be. So, what does that mean for us? What does it mean for us as far as our relations with each other, with our friends, our loved ones, with the earth? What does it mean? It means that if we're going to go through a change, we have to prepare for a change. And in the first part of your life, you're looking at, what you can get for yourself. You learn things. You're nurtured by your parents. You're educated by the system, and you're taught things. And one thing that I think that people should do in the first 7 years of a life of a child is try to really introduce as much truth into that life as possible. Which means that you shouldn't be telling children about things like Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all of these crazy ideas about things that really aren't real. Because what happens is, and I know you might think, well, every child deserves to know about Santa Claus, and everybody thinks that they should know about the stork and things like that. Well, at what point do you want your child to become smacked with reality? I would rather tell a child about the reality of life in a way that they're not going to be shocked by it, than to let them know all of a sudden, oh, by the way, these things we told you don't really exist. Okay? And also, when you're young, you should strive to make your body strong. As you go through your second sevens, from birth from 1 to the age of 7, you have a certain mindset, a certain influence, a certain drive. But then when you go into your next set of 7, you're going to be heading towards 14. You're becoming more of an adult. You should make your body strong. You should prepare your mind. You should learn the things that you need to do to get yourself into the next stage of your life. Because when you hit into your next 7, you're going to be 21 years old. You're now an adult. You know how to drive. You should be educated. You're ready to go into the world. If you think about that, if you look at those 7s, every 7 years you're preparing for something better. Okay? Again, going back, you're born, now you're 7 years old. At 7, you're already into preschool. You're probably in like the second grade, I guess, and you're starting to learn. You're starting to develop. You're starting to grow. Okay, and then you go into being 14. Your body starts to go through puberty, and now you're becoming an adult. You're becoming aware of your body. You're becoming stronger. Your senses are starting to become more aware of itself and nature. You're getting stronger. You're starting to see more things that are serious. You're not as concerned with playing, but becoming part of your environment. You start to become aware of yourself sexually. You start to become aware of yourself on a mental level, on a spiritual level. You start to grow. And in many cultures, a long time ago, a person was considered to be an adult when they start to develop adult features, okay, like body hair and just things that adults have, okay. Then you go into your next phase. You're 21. Now at 21, you're considered a legal, full-grown adult. You can drive, you can drink, you can have a job, you can do a lot of things, and you're considered fully grown. And you're going to start putting away the things that are childish. You're not going to be concerned with just playing and having fun and just doing things to appease yourself, but you're looking at your responsibility in life. You can be married at 21. You can have children at 21. You can become a captain of industry. You can become a teacher. You can become anything you want to be. But you've made a change, and it was 7 years since the last change, and you see a staunch difference in your personality and your life's mission, your life's ambition. So it means that every time you see a change over 7 years, you should have used that time to be all that you can be in that particular time and prepare yourself for your next 7. Now, the fact that I'll be 51 in a few months. I've had 7 changes, and now I'm into my second year of the newness of the next 7. And I do see a difference. I do see a difference in myself. I see a difference in my outlook on life. I see a difference in the things that interest me. But also, I don't disavow what came before. I still like to go back and visit, the ages I had when I was 35 or when I was 28 or 21 or any time within those 7 years, because that keeps me grounded with who I am. But knowing that I don't cling to that which is past, because that's gone. That person is just as dead as someone who was alive and has been buried in the cemetery, because I cannot find that person. Think about it. I cannot find the 35-year version of myself on earth. I cannot find the 7-year-old version of myself. I cannot find the 21-year-old. I can't find any version of myself from this point going backwards. And the version of myself that's going to come hasn't been born yet. It hasn't been created. So therefore, I'm looking forward to that next changeover. And they say that when you're born, you're sort of like looking at being like an athlete. And as you get older, you become a statesperson. So you're looking at how you can conquer the world, how you can take on things, how you can use your body. As you get older, you look at how your mind and how your influence and how your life worth can influence those around you. And so it's very important. And when it comes to relationships, a lot of times when people, when they're married and talk about the 7-year itch, what happens is 2 people come together at a certain time, and then as time moves on, they go through that change, and they both become different people than they first knew and married. So the spouse may change into this person who is thinking about things that don't really matter to the spouse, or vice versa. But if you understand that change is coming, then you'll start to strive to ally yourself with your spouse and grow together. So if she's doing something, you might want to join in. If you're doing something, she might want to join in. Or you say, you know what, I decided I want to learn this. Maybe you want to help me to practice it, or you want to see if you can join me dancing, or learn a new language, or exercising, whatever it may be. You have to become one with that particular attitude of there's a growth coming, there's a newness coming. And that way you won't be so surprised, and you won't say to yourself, you know what, we kind of lost track of who we were and we grew apart. To grow apart means that the changes took you in different directions. It's like parallel lines that were off by a little bit, and they all of a sudden they just went off into a whole different direction. Okay. And also, I'm not going to go too deep into my beliefs about the afterlife or what happens to us when we die, but I can just say this, that what we are will always be here on earth. Okay, the chemicals that make up our body, it's like when you get a haircut. Okay, do you believe that that hair doesn't go somewhere? When your skin rejuvenates itself and the skin cells fall off, you don't believe that that skin goes somewhere. Okay, do you believe that when you were a baby that you have the exact same organs and the exact same skin? No, all that dissipated, and it grew out, and it all went off to other places and to other things and to other times and in other places. So that's how we are. We're always changing, and what makes our body, with the chemicals that make us, are always going to be just dispersed like water. It's like if you have a bottle of water and you drink it, do you think that you were the only person ever to drink that water? Does that water not go back to where it came from and continues to flow? There can be a river, there can be a stream, there can be a pond, there can be a puddle. It's all made up of the same water, and the water continues to just go back to its source and come back down and just continues to go. Same thing with who we are. Our essence, what makes us who we are, is always going to be here. But as we go through these changes, we're going to have to understand that it's going to be moving us into a direction that we can't always predict, but we know it's there. Okay, and when you see people and they're trying to suppress nature by getting Botox, or by getting facelifts and all kind of crazy stuff, they don't even look natural. You see these, these celebrities, they get themselves fixed, and they don't look like natural people anymore. They look like they've had work done. They don't go with the flow of nature, and instead of them looking like a 60-year-old man, they look like a 60-year-old robot. Okay, they don't have wrinkles, they don't have gray hair, but they got something that looks unnatural, because they don't understand that you do change. Okay, and sometimes when people get the work done first, it look fine. Okay, like maybe like Stallone, he first got his work done, he looked fine, but then as he get older, his body started to grow older, but his processes didn't, and now he looks sort of like a freak. Okay, or Joan Rivers and people like that. Again, it's not my point to disparage people like that and put them down. I'm just making them, as an example, because you know them. But if you understand that there is a process that is just occurring, and you will get older, and you will one day no longer be here as you are, you're not going to fight it. Okay, like I said, I'll be 51 years old soon, and I don't worry about that. I don't think about it. I don't get up every day and look in the mirror and say, yeah, how much older do I look? I really don't care about that. Who I am is based on how I want to be. Now, what you can do, you can go back to an attitude that you had when you were of a younger version of yourself, of another 7 changeover, let's say 35 or 28, and take on that attitude and say, I'll let that person's spirit drive me as I move on. And so I can be a 50-year-old, but I have the attitude of someone who's 28 or someone who's 35. and that keeps me young. I'm not saying that it's going to work for you, but I know it's worked for me. And I think people will look at me and they don't. Most people can't guess my age because not because I look so much younger, because I don't relate to myself as being an old person. I see myself as being a young person who continues to just have the vehicle which is changing. And that's one of the best ways to be. So, look at yourself as being someone who is changing, who's growing, who is moving on, and you're not going to be afraid of the changeover. You're not going to be afraid of what's coming, but embrace it. Don't fear it, because it's like I said, you're really not doing anything. You're being done. You can't fight it. You can go to the doctors and you can have things done, but in the end, you're still going to end up just being what you're supposed to be. You can't fight nature. But what you can do is understand the process and then kind of go with it like a person who is sailing with the wind as opposed to trying to row against the tide. Thank you for listening, and until next time, have a great day.